A dream, a fleeting projection of another consciousness. Imagine a dream so vivid that you can't tell where the dreamer ends and the dream begins. A world painted by the mind of another, so intricately woven into the fabric of reality that even your most conscious moments are its creations. The scene fades in, a quiet room, a person lying still, eyes closed in the deepest of slumbers. The world outside is calm, yet in the mind of the dreamer, entire universes are unfolding. Buildings rise and crumble, stars are born and die, and the laws of nature are in flux, bending to the whims of the mind. As the dreamer shifts, so does the landscape. Trees sway, oceans rise, and entire civilizations fall. The dreamer is both the creator and the creation, and in their mind, the very essence of what they perceive becomes reality. But what happens when the dreamer wakes? Do they simply forget the worlds they've made, or do those worlds persist, lingering in the void between wakefulness and sleep? In the deepest corners of modern physics, quantum mechanics has already told us that the very nature of reality is far more strange than we could ever imagine. Particles don't exist in any definite state until observed. They exist in multiple possibilities, coexisting, flickering in and out of existence until an observer brings them into focus. And yet we're told that all of this is just the way the universe operates, simply the mechanics of the cosmos. But what if that's not all? What if at the heart of these quantum mysteries lies a more profound truth? That reality is not something solid and fixed at all, but a process, a dream, an unfolding thought created by the act of observation itself? This is the central idea of quantum idealism, a provocative, unsettling idea that stretches our understanding of reality. In quantum idealism, consciousness is not merely an observer of reality, it is in fact the creator. The universe is, in essence, a reflection of the mind. Reality, as we know it, could be nothing more than the vivid dream of a consciousness we cannot yet fully comprehend. The universe, with all its stars, galaxies, and swirling clouds of quantum particles, might be nothing more than a cosmic hallucination, a fleeting projection in the vast mind of the universe. To grasp this, we must confront the paradox at the heart of quantum physics, the observer effect. In the quantum world, the simple act of observation seems to collapse infinite possibilities into a single reality. Without the observer, the world is in a state of potentiality, shifting, undefined, waiting for awareness to define it. It is the observer, the conscious participant, that determines what is real and what is not. This forces us to ask, is the world truly out there, independent of us? Or do we, as observers, dream it into existence with every glance, every thought, every breath? The question then arises, who is the dreamer? Is it us, the conscious beings who navigate this world? Or is it something greater, something beyond our understanding, that we are but a part of a consciousness that has woven the fabric of space-time itself, a mind that extends beyond our human experience, dreaming us into existence? This idea isn't just speculative. It's a concept that has roots in some of the deepest philosophical traditions, from the ancient mystics to modern thinkers like George Berkeley, who posited that the material world exists only in the mind. The concept of quantum idealism challenges everything we thought we knew about reality. It asks us to reconsider the very nature of existence. If reality is indeed the creation of consciousness, then does it follow that the universe is alive with awareness? Is every particle, every wave, every force, in fact, a manifestation of something thinking, dreaming, or perceiving? Could we, as individual observers, be the dreamers of this world, creating it with our thoughts, even as we experience it as real and separate from ourselves? Let's imagine. You stand on the edge of a cliff, the wind blowing softly through your hair, the vastness of the ocean stretching before you. You breathe deeply, feeling the coolness of the air, the warmth of the sun. This moment feels real. But what if, in the quietest corners of your mind, you realize that this reality is not separate from you, but is, in fact, an extension of your own consciousness? What if the very fabric of the world, the sensations, the experiences, the thoughts, are all the product of a deeper, unseen awareness that shapes everything as you perceive it? In this reality, you are both the dreamer and the dream, creating and experiencing simultaneously. As we venture deeper into this documentary, we'll explore the implications of quantum idealism. We will confront the paradoxes that arise when we consider that reality might not exist independently of our perception, but rather is shaped and crafted by our awareness. Through the lens of quantum physics, we will dive into the mysteries of wave-particle duality, the observer effect, and the strange behavior of particles that exist in multiple states at once. We will examine the ways in which consciousness could be far more integral to the universe than we realize. As we unravel these concepts, we begin to see that reality is not simply a passive thing that exists outside of us. Instead, it is something alive, something constantly in flux, shaped by our perceptions and our thoughts. Just like the dreamer in our story, we are part of the unfolding, an integral piece in the vast cosmic puzzle. Our awareness does not just observe the universe, it shapes it, creates it, and, in a very real way, dreams it into existence. By the end of this journey, we will have peeled back the layers of reality to reveal that perhaps there is no line between the dream and the dreamer, between the observer and the observed. Reality, it seems, might not be a static, fixed entity at all, but a living, breathing dream, the dream of a consciousness that stretches beyond the limits of our understanding. Quantum idealism. The mind creates the world, the universe as we know. It seems to be governed by the laws of physics, by forces, particles and matter, all moving in an intricate dance dictated by mathematical equations. We tend to believe that consciousness is simply a byproduct of these physical processes, a result of neurons firing in our brains, a byproduct of the material world. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the mind, consciousness itself, isn't just a passive observer of the universe, but its very creator? Imagine a small ripple in a pond, one of the first glimpses of a thought forming in the vast sea of consciousness. The ripples extend outward, touching everything they encounter, shaping the surface of the water. Similarly, in quantum idealism, consciousness is not something that merely arises from physical processes. It is the force that shapes and gives form to reality itself. It is not a spectator in the theater of the universe, but the playwright, the director, the creator of the play. At the heart of quantum idealism is a radical idea that the mind or consciousness is the fundamental force behind the creation of the physical world. This concept challenges the very foundations of materialism, the belief that the physical world exists independently of our perceptions. Quantum idealism, on the other hand, suggests that reality itself is a mental construct, a reality that is shaped and molded by consciousness, not just observed by it. To understand this, we must first explore the core of quantum mechanics, the science that underpins much of modern physics. In the world of quantum physics, particles do not exist in a single definite state. Instead, they exist in a superposition of all possible states, waiting for an observer to collapse the wave of possibilities into one definite reality. This is known as the wave function collapse. A particle's state is only decided when it is observed. Before observation, it exists as a wave, a collection of probabilities, all of which are equally likely. But when we look at it, it becomes one thing and one thing only. At the quantum level, the act of observing, or more accurately, the act of consciousness interacting with the quantum field, seems to determine reality. The very presence of an observer affects the outcome. It's as though reality doesn't exist until it is observed, and even then, it exists in a way that is shaped by the observer's perception. This idea leads us to a staggering conclusion. The mind itself could be an active participant in the creation of the physical world. This is where quantum idealism enters the picture. According to this perspective, the material world is not a concrete, independent entity, but a manifestation of consciousness itself. The laws of physics are not an objective reality waiting to be discovered, they are expressions of a deeper mental reality. In this view, the mind doesn't simply observe the universe, it is the universe. The world we see, feel, and touch is no more than a projection of consciousness, a mental construct. Just as dreams create worlds within the mind, so too might the universe be created by the mind. One of the earliest proponents of a similar philosophy was the philosopher George Berkeley. In the 18th century, Berkeley famously proposed that the physical world did not exist independently of perception. Esse est percipi, he argued. To be is to be perceived. According to Berkeley, reality exists only because it is perceived by a conscious mind. The world is not an external independent entity, it exists only in the minds of those who perceive it. In his view, God was the ultimate perceiver, maintaining the existence of the world through his awareness. But what if, instead of God, it is our collective consciousness that gives birth to reality? Fast forward to modern physics, where some physicists and philosophers have revisited this question. One such figure is Roger Penrose, a renowned physicist who has explored the idea that consciousness plays a more central role in the fabric of reality than we currently understand. Penrose suggests that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain's physical processes, but rather a fundamental feature of the universe itself. He posits that consciousness is tied to the very structure of the universe, influencing and shaping reality at the quantum level. According to Penrose, the brain might be capable of tapping into deeper quantum processes that connect it to the fabric of the universe, acting as a conduit through which consciousness interacts with the physical world. If consciousness can influence the quantum realm, then what does that mean for the physical world we experience? The most astonishing possibility is that our perception of reality is not a passive reflection of an independent world, but rather an active, creative process. Every glance, every thought, every perception shapes and molds the universe around us. Our awareness does not just receive the world, it creates it, moment by moment. In the same way that a dream unfolds in the mind, reality could be continuously unfolding in the mind of the observer. This perspective challenges the core of materialism, the belief that physical matter is the foundation of all existence. According to quantum idealism, consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain's activity, but rather the very force that gives rise to the brain and the world it inhabits. The material world is not separate from consciousness, it is an extension of it. Reality does not exist out there waiting to be discovered. Instead, it exists as a mental construct, one that is shaped and defined by the observer. Let's take a moment to visualize this radical concept. Imagine that the entire universe is like a blank canvas, untouched and waiting for the artist to begin. The canvas is filled with infinite possibilities, each one a potential reality. It is only when the artist begins to paint that the world comes into being. The artist's mind shapes the strokes of the brush, guiding the creation of forms, colors, and patterns. Similarly, consciousness is the artist, painting the canvas of reality with each thought and perception. The world, in this sense, is not a static, pre-existing object, but a dynamic, ever-changing creation, shaped by the mind. This view does not diminish the importance of the physical world. On the contrary, it highlights how the physical world and consciousness are intricately intertwined. The laws of physics are not separate from the mind. They are expressions of the mental reality that shapes them. In quantum idealism, the observer is not a passive witness to a pre-existing world. They are an active participant in the creation of that world. The mind and the universe are not two separate entities, but are deeply connected in a dance of creation, perception, and awareness. As we continue our exploration of quantum idealism, we will delve deeper into the implications of this theory. We will examine how quantum mechanics might reveal a more intimate connection between consciousness and the fabric of the universe. We will explore the scientific experiments that challenge our understanding of reality, and we will confront the questions that lie at the heart of this theory. What happens when we, as observers, cease to observe? Does the universe continue to exist without us? And if we are the creators of reality, what does that mean for our place within it? Quantum idealism asks us to reconsider our most basic assumptions about the nature of reality. It invites us to explore the possibility that the mind is not merely a passenger in the journey of life, but the very creator of the world we experience. In the end, it suggests that the universe is not a passive stage upon which we act, but an active creation, shaped, molded, and continuously redefined by the consciousness that perceives it. Reality as a construct of consciousness. In the heart of quantum mechanics lies a paradox so strange, so counterintuitive, that it has shaken the very foundations of reality itself. It is a paradox that speaks not only to the nature of the physical universe, but also to the role we, as conscious observers, play in its creation. The paradox is this: in the quantum realm, particles exist in multiple states at once until they are observed, and it is the very act of observation that collapses those possibilities into one definitive state. This phenomenon, known as the observer effect, raises profound questions about the nature of reality and the role of consciousness. Could it be that the universe, as we experience it, is not a pre-existing fixed reality, but something that is shaped and created by our awareness? Could consciousness itself be the force that brings the material world into existence, moment by moment? Let's begin with an experiment that has become synonymous with the mystery of quantum mechanics: Schrödinger's cat. In this thought experiment, a cat is placed inside a sealed box with a radioactive atom, a Geiger counter, and a vial of poison. If the atom decays, the vial breaks and the poison is released, killing the cat. If the atom doesn't decay, the cat remains alive. According to quantum mechanics, the atom exists in a superposition of both decayed and undecayed states until it is observed. This means that until the box is opened, the cat is simultaneously both alive and dead, a strange, unsettling superposition of two contradictory states. Only when the box is opened, when the observer makes the measurement, does the cat's fate collapse into one of these two possibilities. But this paradox raises an even deeper question. Why does the act of observation cause the collapse of the wave function? In the quantum world, reality exists as a field of probabilities. Particles are not in one definite state, but in multiple states at once, each one equally likely. It is the observer who forces the wave of possibilities to collapse into a single, definitive reality. But why? What is it about the conscious act of observation that creates this shift from potentiality? To understand this more deeply, let's take a closer look at the double-slit experiment, one of the most famous and perplexing experiments in quantum physics. In this experiment, particles such as electrons or photons are fired at a barrier with two slits. On the other side of the barrier, a screen detects where the particles land. When the particles are not observed, they behave like waves, creating an interference pattern on the screen, just as water waves would. But when the particles are observed as they pass through the slits, they behave like particles, creating two distinct marks on the screen, as if they had chosen one slit or the other. The most astonishing aspect of the double-slit experiment is that the particles appear to know whether or not they are being observed. When they are not observed, they behave like waves, existing in a superposition of multiple states at once. But as soon as the act of observation takes place, they decide to behave like particles. It is the presence of the observer that determines which state the particle will take. This raises an unsettling question. What role does the observer play in the collapse of the wave function? The act of observation seems to be what forces the wave of possibilities to collapse into a single reality. But how can the mere presence of consciousness of awareness have such a profound effect on the physical world? Does this mean that the universe itself is dependent on a conscious observer to exist? Are we, in a very real sense, creating the material world through our awareness of it? This is where quantum idealism begins to emerge as a possible answer to these questions. In quantum idealism, consciousness is not just a byproduct of physical processes, it is the very foundation of reality. The material world is not something that exists independently of us. It is a construct of our consciousness, shaped and defined by our awareness. The observer does not merely watch the world unfold, it creates it. Just as a dream exists only in the mind of the dreamer, so too does the physical world exist only in the mind of the observer. The universe is not separate from us. It is part of us. We are not passive spectators of reality, we are active participants in its creation. As we explore the implications of the observer effect and quantum idealism, we begin to see how deeply consciousness and the physical world are intertwined. The act of observation is not just a passive act of perception, it is a creative act. It is through our awareness that we shape the very nature of reality. The universe does not exist independently of us, it is a living, breathing reflection of our consciousness. Every thought, every glance, every moment of awareness is a brushstroke on the canvas of existence, shaping and molding the world we experience. But if reality is a construct of consciousness, what does that mean for the universe when we are not observing it? Does it still exist in any meaningful way? This is where the boundary between perception and reality begins to blur. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in a state of potentiality. When unobserved, they are not fixed, but exist in multiple states at once. It is only through observation that they choose a definite state. This raises the possibility that the universe itself might exist in a similar state of potentiality, waiting for an observer to bring it into focus. As we reach the end of this section, we are left with a profound question. Could the universe be, in fact, dependent on a conscious observer to manifest? Does the universe require us to observe it, to bring it into existence, just as a dream requires a dreamer to exist? Or does reality exist independently of our awareness, as traditional materialism suggests? These questions lie at the heart of the observer effect, and in many ways, they define the boundaries between science and philosophy, between the known and the unknown. In the next sections, we will continue to explore these mysteries, delving deeper into the paradoxical relationship between consciousness and reality, and the strange world of quantum mechanics, where the line between observer and observed begins to dissolve. Idealism versus materialism. The battle for reality's origins. At the heart of human thought lies one of the most profound and enduring questions. What is the true nature of reality? Is the universe, with all its stars, galaxies, and particles, something that exists independently of us, or is it a creation of our minds, a mental projection that we experience through perception? This question has divided philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. On one side, we have materialism, the belief that the physical world exists independently of our perception, and that consciousness arises from complex physical processes. On the other side, we have idealism, the notion that the mind is the ultimate creator of reality, that consciousness and not matter is the foundation of everything. The tension between these two perspectives is not just an intellectual exercise. It lies at the heart of our understanding of the universe itself. Do we live in a world that exists regardless of us? This is where quantum mechanics meets the idealist perspective. Could it be that consciousness is not just a passive observer of reality, but an active participant in the creation of it? If particles exist in multiple states until observed, and it is the observer that collapses the wave function into a definite state, then perhaps the material world is not as independent as we once thought. Could it be that reality exists only in a state of potentiality, waiting for an observer consciousness to bring it into being? The philosopher David Chalmers famously coined the term the hard problem of consciousness, the question of why, and how subjective experience arises from physical processes in the brain. The more we understand about the brain and its functions, the more we seem to be confronted with the mystery of how consciousness can emerge from mere matter. For materialists, the answer is simple. Consciousness is an emergent property of complex physical processes. But for idealists, this simply raises further questions. If consciousness can't be reduced to mere physical processes, then perhaps it is not the result of the material world, but rather, the material world is the result of consciousness itself. As we delve deeper into quantum mechanics, we encounter strange phenomena that challenge our traditional notions of reality. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, every possible outcome of a quantum event exists in a separate parallel universe. In this interpretation, consciousness plays a central role in determining which branch of reality we experience. This again suggests that reality is not a fixed, independent entity, but a mental construct, shaped by the observer. The tensions between idealism and materialism are further illustrated by the ongoing debates within the scientific community. While many scientists cling to materialism as the guiding principle of their work, others, such as Roger Penrose, have explored the idea that consciousness could be a fundamental aspect of the universe, tied to the very fabric of space-time itself. Penrose's theories of orchestrated objective reduction propose that quantum processes play a key role in the emergence of consciousness, suggesting that the mind may indeed shape reality at the quantum level. But even if quantum mechanics is pushing us toward a more idealist view of reality, there remains a deep reluctance to abandon the materialist worldview. The idea that consciousness could create the physical world is so radical, so counter to centuries of scientific thought, that it is difficult for many to accept. The tension between idealism and materialism is, in many ways, the central conflict of modern philosophy, a battle for the very nature of existence itself. So where do we stand? As we continue to probe the mysteries of quantum mechanics, the lines between idealism and materialism become increasingly blurred. We have seen that consciousness seems to play an active role in the collapse of the wave function, and that reality may not be as independent of us as we once thought. But we are still left with the age-old question: is the mind the creator of the universe, or is the universe an independent entity that exists regardless of our perception? As we continue our journey through the quantum realm, we will explore how these two perspectives, idealism and materialism, are both challenged and illuminated by the discoveries of modern physics. The unseen force behind idealism, the world we experience, is one defined by a comforting sense of solidity and objectivity. We walk through space, touch objects, and measure things with precision, all the while believing in the independent existence of the physical world. However, when we peer into the microscopic world of quantum mechanics, we are confronted with a much stranger reality, one that defies our classical understanding and opens the door to the possibility that consciousness and observation play a central role in shaping existence. For centuries, the materialist worldview held that the universe operates according to fixed laws, independent of our perception. The material world was seen as existing out there, independent of the observer, and consciousness was regarded as a byproduct of brain processes. But quantum mechanics, the branch of physics that deals with the behavior of particles at the smallest scales, has continually challenged this view. In the quantum realm, reality behaves in ways that seem utterly impossible from the standpoint of classical physics. The most famous and perplexing phenomena are wave-particle duality and quantum entanglement, two concepts that force us to question the very nature of reality and, by extension, our role in its creation. The wave-particle duality of quantum objects is one of the most striking mysteries of quantum mechanics. At first glance, particles like electrons and photons appear to be discrete, localized objects that can be measured and tracked. Yet, when subjected to certain experiments, they exhibit behaviors that suggest they are not particles at all, but waves spread out, unfocused, and capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously. It's as though the particle is both here and there, a wave of potential, until it is observed. The moment we attempt to measure the particle, however, it collapses into a single, definite state, a particle located in one place at one time. This collapse is what has puzzled scientists for nearly a century. In classical physics, objects exist in a definite state regardless of whether they are observed. But in quantum mechanics, objects seem to exist in a superposition of states, multiple possibilities coexisting until an observer forces them to take a definite form. This raises a profound question. What is the role of the observer in collapsing the wave function? And more importantly, what does this mean for our understanding of reality? Could the very act of observation be the key to manifesting the physical world? For many, the implications of wave-particle duality suggest that reality is not as fixed and independent as we once believed. Instead, the act of observation, the presence of consciousness, plays an integral role in determining the nature of physical reality. In this sense, quantum mechanics appears to support the idea that the mind is not merely an observer of the universe, but an active participant in its creation. The act of perception collapses infinite possibilities into one concrete reality. But this isn't the only quantum phenomenon that challenges the materialist view. Consider the concept of quantum entanglement, one of the most mind-boggling aspects of quantum theory. In an entangled state, this phenomenon hints at a universe where the very fabric of reality is dependent on consciousness. The act of observation, the conscious act of perceiving the world, determines the state of quantum objects. It's as though the universe requires the observer to bring it into focus, to collapse the wave of possibilities into one solid, observable reality. In this sense, quantum mechanics seems to support the notion that consciousness is not merely a passive observer of the world, but an active participant in its creation. What if this is the key to understanding reality itself? What if the universe is not a fixed, independent entity, but a constantly shifting, ever-changing construct that is shaped by our awareness? What if, instead of existing out there, the world is a mental projection, shaped by the consciousness that perceives it? Quantum mechanics, with its strange and puzzling phenomena, challenges our understanding of the material world and points us toward a new, more radical vision of reality, one where consciousness is not just a byproduct of the brain, but the very foundation of existence. As we continue to explore the quantum realm, we may come to realize that the mind is not a passive observer of the universe, but the active creator of it. In the quantum world, the observer and the observed are not separate. They are part of a single, interconnected reality, where consciousness is the force that shapes the universe itself. Is our reality a dream? the role of imagination in creation. Imagine, for a moment, that everything you see, hear, and feel is a dream. What if the world around you, the trees, the mountains, the endless sky, was nothing more than the projection of a mind? What if you, the observer, were not just a passive witness to the universe, but an integral part of a consciousness, a higher mind that dreams the world into existence? Could it be that what we perceive as reality is no more than a mental construct, a dream that we share with others, a dream that exists in the mind of a universal consciousness? This question, though deeply philosophical, has echoes that stretch from the ancient world to modern quantum mechanics. At the heart of this question lies a radical idea that the physical world does not exist independently of our consciousness, but is instead a product of the mind, a world created by thought, perception, and imagination. This is the concept of mind-only reality, where all of existence, from the stars in the sky to the ground beneath our feet, exists within the consciousness of a higher mind or universal consciousness. The idea that our reality might be a dream is not a new one. In fact, it dates back to some of the earliest philosophical thought. The dream argument, famously put forward by René Descartes, is one of the most well-known expressions of this concept. Descartes, in his Meditations on First Philosophy, proposed that there is no way to distinguish between being awake and dreaming. He argued that all of our sensory experiences could be the result of a dream, and that the physical world, as we know it, could be a mere illusion created by our minds. Descartes questioned the very nature of reality, suggesting that it is possible that everything we perceive the world, the people, the sensations, could be a projection of our own imagination. Descartes' argument is unsettling because it challenges the very foundation of our understanding of existence. If we cannot trust our senses to reveal the true nature of reality, then what can we trust? How can we be sure that the world we experience is real in any meaningful sense? This question has haunted philosophers for centuries, and it continues to resonate in the context of modern quantum mechanics. At the core of quantum mechanics lies the idea that reality is not as solid and fixed as we once believed. Quantum particles, like electrons, do not exist in definite states until they are observed. Instead, they exist in a state of superposition, where they can occupy multiple states at once. It is only when we observe them that they collapse into one particular state. This suggests that the act of observation plays a central role in the creation of reality, that our perception of the world shapes it, defining it, and bringing it into being. Could it be, then, that the world we experience is not an objective, independent reality, but a mental projection, a dream that exists only in the mind? In modern interpretations of quantum idealism, this idea gains further traction. Quantum mechanics, with its strange and paradoxical phenomena, has forced us to reconsider our most basic assumptions about the nature of reality. If particles exist in multiple states until they are observed, and if the observer's consciousness plays a central role in determining the outcome, then perhaps reality itself is a construct of consciousness. The world, in this view, is not a separate, objective entity, but a creation of the mind, a projection of thought and perception. The idea of a mind-only reality is not limited to Descartes or quantum mechanics. Throughout history, thinkers have proposed similar concepts. The philosopher George Berkeley famously argued that the material world does not exist independently of perception. According to Berkeley, reality is nothing more than a collection of ideas in the mind. For him, to exist is to be perceived. The world exists only because it is perceived by a mind, whether it be our own or the mind of a higher consciousness. In this sense, the world we experience is not out there, waiting to be discovered. It exists only as a mental construct, a projection of the mind, and just as in a dream, the boundaries between subject and object, observer and observed, become blurred. the universe in this view is not something that exists independently of us. It is something that is created by our consciousness, a world that we bring into being through our awareness. This idea takes on new significance when we consider the role of imagination in the creation of reality. Imagination, often seen as a mere faculty of the mind that conjures up fanciful images and scenarios, may in fact be the very force that shapes the world. Just as a dream is formed from the imagination, so too could the physical world be a product of a higher, universal imagination. The universe, in this view, is not a collection of inert objects, but a dynamic, ever-changing projection of thought and consciousness. Imagine for a moment that the world around you, the trees, the sky, the mountains, is not something separate from you, but a projection of your own mind. You are not a passive observer of this world. You are an active participant in its creation. Every thought, every perception, every act of imagination is shaping the world around you, weaving it into existence. In this way, you are not simply living in the world. You are dreaming it into being, just as a dreamer shapes the world of their dreams with each passing thought. This concept challenges our deepest assumptions about the nature of reality. If the world is a projection of the mind, then what does that say about our place within it? Are we the dreamers creating the world with our thoughts, or are we part of a larger universal mind that dreams the world into existence? And if reality is a mental construct, what happens when we stop perceiving it? Does the world disappear like a dream fading upon waking, or does it continue to exist, independent of our perception? These questions point to a deeper mystery one that lies at the intersection of idealism and quantum mechanics. If the act of observation is integral to the creation of reality, then perhaps we are not simply passive witnesses to the unfolding of the universe. Perhaps we are, in some sense, the dreamers of the world, the creators of the reality we experience. Quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain's physical processes, but a force that shapes the very fabric of the universe. In the dream argument, Descartes questions whether the physical world exists independently of our perception. Quantum mechanics, in a similar way, challenges us to question the nature of reality. Is the universe truly out there, independent of our consciousness, or is it a mental project, the many worlds interpretation, a consciousness-based multiverse? What if every choice you made, every decision, every moment in time didn't just shape the present, but created an entirely new universe, one where a different version of you exists following a different path? Imagine, if you will, a multiverse, an infinite expanse of parallel realities, each one a different branch of existence, all stemming from the countless quantum events that occur at every moment. In this multiverse, every decision, every quantum interaction creates a new universe where all possibilities unfold in parallel. This is the essence of the many worlds interpretation, MWI, of quantum mechanics, a theory that challenges the very nature of reality. According to MWI, every quantum event spawns multiple coexisting realities, each resulting in a different outcome. When a quantum particle is in a superposition of states rather than collapsing into one definite state upon observation, it branches out into multiple states, each existing in its own separate reality. The universe splits into multiple versions of itself, with each outcome occurring in a parallel universe. The implications of this theory are profound not just for physics, but for our understanding of existence itself. If the many worlds interpretation is correct, it suggests that reality is not a single, fixed entity, but a fluid, ever-expanding multiverse, where every possibility is realized in its own separate timeline. But here's the question: could consciousness be the force that not only collapses the wave function but also gives rise to entire branches of reality? Could our subjective experience shape the very structure of the multiverse? To explore this, let's first understand what MWI tells us about the nature of quantum events. In traditional quantum mechanics, particles exist in a superposition of states simultaneously in multiple potential outcomes until they are observed. At this point, the wave function collapses and the particle adopts a definite state. But according to MWI, rather than collapsing into a single outcome, each possible state of the particle is realized in its own separate universe. The universe splits into parallel branches, each one corresponding to a different outcome. For example, in the famous double-slit experiment, particles behave like waves until they are observed, at which point they collapse into one definite location. In the MWI view, instead of the particle collapsing into a single outcome, the universe itself splits into two separate realities, one where the particle went through the left slit and one where it went through the right. Both realities coexist in parallel, with each one being just as real as the other. In MWI, this branching of realities happens continuously at every quantum event. Every time a quantum particle interacts with another, a new branch of reality is created, leading to a vast, ever-growing multiverse of parallel worlds. The universe is no longer a single, unchanging entity, but a dynamic and ever-expanding collection of possibilities, where every possible outcome has its own universe. But here's where things get even more interesting. Could consciousness be the key to this branching process? In the traditional view of quantum mechanics, the observer plays a passive role, merely observing the universe, but not shaping it. The universe exists independently of the observer, with reality unfolding according to the laws of physics. But in the many worlds interpretation, the role of the observer becomes far more profound. The observer does not merely collapse the wave function, the observer creates the new branch of reality. Each time a decision is made, each time a quantum event occurs, the observer's consciousness is integral in splitting the universe into multiple realities. Imagine, for a moment, that every time you make a decision, a new version of you is created, in a parallel universe living out the consequences of that choice. In this view, the act of observation and consciousness is not just passive, it is active. It is through our awareness, our perception, that the multiverse itself is shaped and created. Every observer, every conscious being, gives rise to an entire universe with its own set of possibilities, creating an ever-expanding web of realities that all coexist in parallel. In this way, MWI aligns with the ideas proposed by quantum idealism, which posits that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of physical processes, but the fundamental force that shapes reality. The multiverse in the many worlds interpretation is not a random collection of parallel realities. It is a conscious creation, with each observer playing an active role in creating their own version of the universe. Reality is not something external, independent, and fixed. It is something that is continuously being created and shaped by consciousness. This idea is not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, some of the world's leading physicists have begun to entertain the possibility that consciousness plays a much more central role in the universe than previously thought. Roger Penrose, a Nobel laureate and a leading figure in the field of quantum physics, has suggested that the mind and consciousness are tied to the very structure of the universe itself. He proposes that consciousness is connected to quantum processes that occur in the brain, and that these quantum processes might be responsible for shaping the very fabric of reality. Penrose's ideas align with MWI in suggesting that the universe is not a deterministic, fixed entity, but one that is shaped and influenced by consciousness. The act of observation, the presence of awareness, could be the key to understanding how parallel realities emerge and coexist. Each observer, through their consciousness, collapses the wave function and creates a new branch of reality. The multiverse. is not a passive collection of parallel worlds, it is a living, dynamic creation shaped by the minds that perceive it. But this raises an even deeper question. If consciousness can create entire branches of reality, what does that mean for our experience of the universe? Are we as individuals simply observers in a multiverse of infinite possibilities, each one a different version of ourselves living out a different outcome? Or are we active creators of the multiverse, shaping not only our own reality, but the very structure of existence itself? The many worlds interpretation, when viewed through the lens of quantum idealism, challenges our deepest assumptions about the nature of reality. It suggests that the multiverse is not a collection of isolated, independent worlds, but a vast, interconnected web of possibilities, each one created by the consciousness of the observer. Our subjective experience is not just a reflection of an external reality, it is the very force that shapes the multiverse itself. As we continue to explore the mysteries of quantum mechanics, we are confronted with the possibility that the universe is not as fixed and independent as we once believed. The many worlds interpretation invites us to reconsider our role as observers and creators of reality. We are not passive witnesses to the unfolding of the multiverse, we are active participants, shaping and creating the very... To explore these questions, we must first dive into some of the most intriguing philosophical ideas about the origin of consciousness and the nature of reality itself. Let's start with solipsism, the radical idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist and the external world may be nothing more than an illusion. According to solipsism, all that exists is the self, our thoughts, our perceptions, and our consciousness. In this view, the physical world and everyone in it are mere projections of our own mind, existing only because we are aware of them. The idea challenges everything we know about existence and reality. If solipsism were true, then there would be no objective world outside of our perception. Everything we experience, every event that happens, would be a creation of our own mind. But if solipsism suggests that we are the sole architects of our reality, what happens when we encounter other minds? How can we explain the shared experience of reality, where everyone seems to perceive the world in a similar way? This is where panpsychism enters the conversation. Panpsychism is the belief that consciousness is not confined to human beings or animals, but is a fundamental quality of all matter. According to panpsychism, everything in the universe, from the smallest particle to the largest galaxy, has some form of consciousness or experience. In this view, the universe itself is conscious, and every part of it participates in the creation of reality. Could it be that reality is not a creation of one individual mind, but a shared experience of many minds, each contributing to the dream? In this case, consciousness is not merely a product of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of the universe itself, an intrinsic feature of all things. If everything has some form of consciousness, then perhaps the universe as a whole is a conscious entity, one that is dreaming us into existence as we, in turn, dream the world around us. While these philosophical perspectives offer intriguing possibilities, they still leave us with one critical question: who or what is the ultimate architect of our reality? Could it be an infinite universal intelligence, a cosmic consciousness that encompasses all of existence? Some thinkers have proposed the idea of a cosmic dreamer, an intelligence that exists beyond the confines of space and time, dreaming the entire universe into being. In this view, everything we experience, every particle, every galaxy, every thought, is part of a vast, ongoing dream, created by a higher, more universal consciousness. This idea aligns with some of the most radical interpretations of quantum idealism, which posits that consciousness is not just a byproduct of the brain's physical processes, but the fundamental creator of reality itself. In this view, the universe is not a fixed, independent reality. It is a mental projection, shaped and molded by the consciousness that perceives it. But if this is the case, then who or what creates the consciousness that shapes our reality? Could it be that the universe as we know it is a dream created by an infinite cosmic mind, a mind that transcends the individual and connects all of existence in a shared, dreamlike experience? To further explore this question, let's juxtapose these ideas with the modern concept of the simulation hypothesis. The simulation hypothesis suggests that our reality may be a simulated experience, created by a higher intelligence, perhaps an advanced civilization or an artificial superintelligence. According to this idea, the universe we perceive is not real in the traditional sense, but rather a computer simulation, a highly sophisticated program that creates the illusion of physical reality. Could it be that we are not simply part of a cosmic dream, but characters within a simulated world, created and orchestrated by a higher intelligence? The simulation hypothesis gains traction in the context of quantum mechanics, where phenomena like wave-particle duality and the observer effect suggest that reality is not fixed and objective, but fluid and dependent on perception. In a simulation, the laws of physics would be the rules of the program, and the act of observation would be akin to interacting with the simulation's interface, shaping the world we experience and determining the outcome of quantum events. Just as a player in a video game creates their own experience within the confines of the game's programming, so too could our consciousness be creating its own experience within the boundaries of a simulated reality. What if our world is a simulation? Not in the traditional sense of video games and computer programs, but in a more profound cosmic way. What if the universe is a cosmic dream, a grand simulation woven together by a higher intelligence, where we, as conscious beings, experience our own version of reality, shaped by our perceptions and interactions? Could it be that the dreamer, the architect of our reality, is not some distant creator, but a cosmic intelligence that dreams the universe into existence through the collective consciousness of all beings? In this view, we are not mere observers of the universe, but active participants in the creation of reality. Our perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness are the tools with which the cosmic dreamer shapes the world around us. And just as a dream is fluid, changing, and ephemeral, so too is our reality constantly shifting, evolving, and adapting to the collective dreams of all conscious beings. The idea of a cosmic dreamer, a higher intelligence dreaming the universe into being, offers a profound perspective on the nature of reality. It suggests that our reality is not an independent, objective world, but a shared dream, a mental projection of a universal consciousness. This consciousness is not distant and separate from us. It is the very force that shapes and creates the world we experience. And in this cosmic dream, we are not passive participants, but active creators, dreamers in our own right, shaping the fabric of the universe with every thought, every perception, every act of awareness. So, who is the architect of our reality? Is it an individual consciousness, a collective mind, or an infinite universal intelligence? The answer may lie somewhere in between. Perhaps we are all part of a larger cosmic consciousness, a mind that transcends the individual and connects all of existence. Or perhaps we are the dreamers of the universe, each of us contributing to the cosmic dream in ways we cannot yet fully understand. What is clear is that the question of who is the architect of our reality is not just a philosophical one. It is a question that touches the very heart of existence itself, and it may be one that science, philosophy, and consciousness studies are only beginning to explore. Quantum idealism and the nature of time. It is one of the most fundamental aspects of our experience. We measure it, we track it, we feel it passing, yet, despite its omnipresence, time remains an enigma, a riddle wrapped in the fabric of reality itself. We see time as a linear progression, one moment following another, past leading into present, present flowing into future. But what if this understanding of time, this seemingly solid, unchanging notion, is just an illusion, a construct of the mind? Could time be not an independent feature of the universe, but This dilemma points to a deeper philosophical issue, the limits of human knowledge. While science has made remarkable strides in understanding the external world, it has yet to fully address the nature of subjective experience. In fact, there are limits to what we can know through scientific inquiry. There are questions about the mind, the nature of consciousness, and the ultimate origin of reality that lie beyond the scope of empirical investigation. Some have argued that these questions are inherently unsolvable through science, at least in the traditional sense. If reality is, as quantum idealism suggests, a mental construct, then science may be limited in its ability to investigate it, because science itself is grounded in the assumption that the external world exists independently of the mind. But does this mean that quantum idealism is unprovable, or that it is beyond the reach of science? Not necessarily. While science may not be able to directly measure consciousness or prove that it shapes reality, there are ways in which we can approach these ideas indirectly. For example, one possible avenue of investigation is the study of consciousness itself. Recent developments in neuroscience and psychology have begun to shed light on the nature of consciousness, though many aspects remain elusive. By better understanding how consciousness arises from brain activity, we may begin to uncover insights into how consciousness interacts with the physical world, and perhaps even how it might shape it. Another approach is to consider the implications of quantum mechanics itself. While quantum idealism may be difficult to prove directly, there are aspects of quantum theory that suggest consciousness plays a role in the collapse of the wave function. For example, the fact that the act of observation seems to affect the outcome of quantum events raises the possibility that consciousness is not merely a passive observer of reality, but an active participant in its creation. If quantum mechanics continues to show that reality is shaped by observation, this may provide indirect evidence that consciousness is integral to the structure of the universe. Furthermore, the philosophical implications of quantum idealism can also guide us toward a deeper understanding of reality. The questions raised by quantum mechanics about the nature of observation, reality, and consciousness have led to a re-evaluation of what science is and what it can and cannot tell us about the universe. It is possible that quantum idealism may not be something that can be proven in the traditional scientific sense, but rather something that can be explored through philosophy and consciousness studies. In this sense, quantum idealism may represent a new frontier, not just for physics, but for our understanding of the very nature of reality itself. As we confront the limits of science in proving quantum idealism, we are left with profound questions about the nature of knowledge, the role of consciousness, and the boundaries of human inquiry. Science, as we know it, may be limited in its ability to measure the subjective experience that quantum idealism suggests shapes reality. But this does not mean that these ideas are without merit, or that they are beyond our ability to understand. They represent a new frontier, one where the mysteries of consciousness, quantum mechanics, and the nature of reality converge, forcing us to reconsider what we know, what we can know, and what lies beyond the limits of our current understanding. Conclusion: the cosmic dreamer and the mystery of existence. As we stand at the edge of this exploration of quantum mechanics, of idealism, and of the very nature of reality itself, we are left with one overwhelming question. Are we living in someone else's dream? Are we, as conscious beings, part of a greater cosmic consciousness that dreams the universe into existence? Is the reality we experience a product of a mind beyond our own, a mental projection of a universal dreamer, shaping the world with every thought, every perception, every act of awareness? As we reflect on the ideas explored throughout this documentary, we find ourselves drawn into the mystery of existence into the paradox of consciousness and reality. From the earliest concepts of quantum mechanics, where particles exist in multiple states until observed, collapsing into one definitive outcome, we see the first glimpses of a reality that is far more fluid, subjective, and interconnected than we could have ever imagined. In the quantum world, reality does not exist independently of the observer. It is shaped and created by the very act of observation itself. The universe, it seems, does not unfold in a predetermined, fixed way. It is something that is actively created through our perception and awareness. The observer effect raises profound questions about the role of consciousness. If reality is not fixed until observed, then how integral is consciousness in shaping the universe? Is it possible that we, as conscious beings, are not merely passive witnesses to the world around us, but active participants in the creation of the very reality we experience? And could this idea be extended even further into the realm of quantum idealism, where consciousness is not just a byproduct of the brain's activity, but the very foundation of reality itself? As we delve deeper into these ideas, we encounter the concept of the cosmic dreamer, a higher universal consciousness that dreams the universe into being. Could the physical world, with all its laws, particles, and galaxies, be nothing more than a mental projection, a dream of a greater mind? Could we be mere dream figures in the vast dreamscape of a cosmic intelligence, existing only because it is aware of us? This idea, one that blends ancient philosophy with modern quantum mechanics, forces us to confront the deepest mysteries of existence. What is reality? What is consciousness? And what role do we play in the grand tapestry of the universe? The many worlds interpretation further deepens this mystery. According to MWI, every quantum event spawns multiple parallel realities, each one a different version of the universe, each one shaped by the decisions and observations of conscious beings. In this view, consciousness not only collapses the wave function, but creates entire branches of reality, each observer experiencing their own version of the multiverse. Could it be that we are not merely spectators in this cosmic drama, but the creators of the worlds we inhabit, shaping the very structure of the multiverse with every thought, every decision, and every act of awareness? In exploring these profound questions, we also encounter some of the oldest philosophical debates: solipsism, the idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist; panpsychism, the notion that all matter is imbued with consciousness; and idealism, the belief that the mind shapes all of existence. These philosophical perspectives, when considered alongside modern theories of quantum mechanics, suggest a vision of reality that is radically different from the materialist worldview. In this vision, consciousness is not a passive observer of a pre-existing universe, it is the force that creates and sustains the world itself. And yet, as we ponder the nature of reality, we are faced with the limits of our understanding. Science, as it stands today, may be unable to prove or disprove the idea of quantum idealism or the notion that consciousness is the ultimate creator of reality. We are left with the uncomfortable reality that despite our best efforts, some aspects of existence may lie beyond the reach of empirical inquiry. The hard problem of consciousness, the challenge of explaining why subjective experience arises from physical processes, is one such example. The deeper we venture into these mysteries, the more we come face to face with the limitations of science and the boundaries between